Hi, my name is Dan Clark, and I was a Jehovah's Witness for 40 years. I was a Jehovah's Witness from birth, and I left the Jehovah's Witnesses about 12 years ago. And I want to talk about why I left the Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a scripture that almost all Jehovah's Witnesses are familiar with, and they tell people, when people say, well, I thought the world was supposed to end in 75 or late 80s, early 90s. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, as myself, would respond, well, you know, the light keeps getting brighter as the day draws near. Jehovah's light gets brighter as the day draws near. And I used to tell this to everybody at the door. And what it means is, like say back in the 1970s, when my dad thought the world was going to end in 1975, the light came on. This light was from Jehovah God. It came down through the watchtower, and the witnesses had illumination of the scriptures. And their interpretation of the scriptures was that the world was going to end in 1975. And it was based on their prophecies in Daniel and Revelation. And they said that it was the world at that time in 1975 was 6,000 years old. And so they said they had this new light. Well, everybody got into a frenzy, got real excited. 71, 72, 73, 74, and then finally 75. 75 came and 75 passed. I know my dad believed in that theory with his whole heart. He used to say it'd be all over by 75, boys. And we never thought we'd drive, we never thought we'd go to school, because Jehovah had shed light on the Bible. And this light that shined through said that 75, it would be all over. Well, 75 didn't happen. It passed, and the light went out. Now, the Jehovah's Witness will tell you that the light got brighter, and they got new light. And anyway, the new light was this. And this is when I became very active in Jehovah's Witnesses. We were preaching the prophecy in Matthew. I believe it was Matthew 24, where it said nation would rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there'd be food shortages and earthquakes and pestilence in one place after another. And all these things would be the beginning of the signs of the time of the end. And then there was a following scripture that said, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things occur. So the witnesses said, we have new light. 75 wasn't it. The new prophecy is 70 or 80 years from 1914, the end was going to come. So guess what? The witnesses had new light from Jehovah down through the watchtower that said 70 or 80 years from 1914, which would be early 80s or late 80s, early 90s, the end was going to come. And it was a part of all these signs that would happen in one generation. Well, as we know, we're in 2012. So the 80s passed, 85, 90s. Well, in the mid-90s, the light went out. I say the light went out on that prophecy, and it was no more. The watchtower began to change, and they got new light. And the new light said that the generation wasn't a generation as we know it. Anyway, this light thing goes on and on and on and on. There's a new prophecy today that said the anointed, who are the 144,000, the only one going to heaven that have partaken of the wine and the emblems, the actual communion is known in Christian religion, that those remaining from 1914 are just a few. Now there's a new anointed that are taking communion and eating the crackers and that sort of thing, and they're overlapping with the old ones that are almost gone. So they said in this time frame, this again is new light in the last assembly, that the end is coming, and it's that close, because the anointed can't live much longer. Some of them were born around 1914, so their lives are about gone. They're almost 100 years old, but they said there would be this overlapping with the new ones. Anyway, that's the new light. What I'd like to suggest is this. If you go back and you look on the computer, which you're told not to do, but if you go back to the beginning, back to the 1800s, when the witnesses first came on the scene and started talking about these prophecies, you'll see that they had a prophecy in the 1800s, which was light from Jehovah. it passed. The early 1900s, there was light from Jehovah. This prophecy went out and it passed. And this has been going on, the 1930s, light from Jehovah, into the watchtower, into the world, it passed. Well, what it actually looks like is this. From the early 1800s to 2012 and beyond, it kind of looks like this. Light from Jehovah, light went out, new light went out, prophecy from Jehovah, new light to the organization, light went out, new light, out, light, out, light, out, light, and it goes on and on. Just take a look at the internet and look at all the prophecies. And ask me, wouldn't you really think that this is light being shed on Jehovah's organization? That the light of truth is that they don't have the truth, they have no idea when the end's coming, and they have no reason to try to figure out when that is? Jesus said he didn't even know when the end was, and that it wasn't our business. But he said up until that time, love God and love your neighbor. And that would be the light. He said we would be the light of the world, not this one organization that proves itself wrong over and over and over. And in my lifetime, I can speak for the two prophecies, the one in 75. The only light that went out in 75 was my dad's. My dad died after that prophecy. He thought that the world was going to end in 75. And so did we. We never thought we'd drive cars. And then I came in that late 80s, early 1990s, and I thought 70 or 80 years from the world's end. You know, that was the light I had. That was the new light from Jehovah to the watchtower into the world. And it didn't happen. That light went out. And now there's a new light for all the new people that are in the organization. Well, that's been my experience up to this point, and I look forward to some of your comments. But that's the truth. That's the truth. That those prophecies have come and gone. And their only thing that the Jehovah's Witness organization says is the light gets brighter. I don't know what light they're talking about. The light of their prophecies. It keeps going dim. It keeps being shown up for it is. False prophecy. And the Bible clearly says, if anyone prophesies and it does not come true, do not listen to these ones. There's a warning there. So that's why I left. Those prophecies didn't come true, and they don't continue to come true. Nobody knows the day or the hour. Let's serve God. Let's love God with our whole heart, mind, and soul, and love our neighbors ourselves, and leave the prophecy alone. Thanks.